Hello, and you are listening to the Book Was Better podcast, the podcast where we talk about the book of the film. I'm Luke.
I'm Sabrina.
And this week we're talking about Total Recall. Get your ass to Mars.
Hey you, put down the popcorn and turn on the light. It's gonna be alright, my friend. In the end, take my hand. Trust me, the book was better.
Holy crap, we got you back again already.
Yeah.
Sabrina, how are you?
Pretty good.
It's always a treat, always a pleasure. And you chose this one. You specifically requested
Well, I like Arnie,
Total Recall by Piers Anthony.
and then I watched the movie, and I thought the book might be good.
Well, it's a pretty great movie. The thing about it is that it has so many, and I realised this going through the book, there are so many memorable little pieces of it that you're wanting to see how the writer deals with it.
Oh, yeah?
Like, don't you reckon, like, you know, him getting the thing out of his nose and the three-breasted woman, there's all those, like, little milestones in that film that you look forward to. It's a pretty entertaining film.
It's like the opposite for me. I think I forgot about all that stuff, and then he kind of, like, made a big deal out of all these things that I'd actually almost forgotten about the film.
Well, this, you know, a lot of authors of novelizations are pretty much, that's what they do. They do tie-in books and they have a very workmanlike approach. This is written by Piers Anthony, who's a sci-fi author, fantasy author in his own right, who's done 166 works, pretty much all original. I think this is his only novelization.
Oh, wow.
And this guy, and I say this respectfully and lovingly because I mean it in a fun way, he's totally nuts. Like, this guy is insane. And you get that from reading this book. I used to own this book when it came out.
Oh, really? So did you read it before the movie or after?
Oh, you know what? I can't remember. Very close to. Either like just before or just after. I have a feeling it might have been even just before, because I used to do that as a kid. I'd read the book and then go and see the movie.
Well, I think I get a feeling that the movie actually this might be wrong, but the movie might have come out after the book, because I saw someone else in the Goodreads reviews saying that he read the book before the film and it had come out before.
The books always do, yeah.
Oh.
They usually come out about a month before, and they are written before the film is finished. So the people writing the book never get to see the film. They work from scripts and any other materials that are available, which is why you often have that disconnect between what's on the page.
Oh, yeah.
And also a lot of scenes that end up getting deleted are always in the book. So I think there's a few scenes here which have been deleted but show up in this book, which does, especially towards the end, have a lot of extra stuff in it. I think some of that is Piers Anthony just being nuts, but I do wonder if some of it was in the original.
I actually just look up a couple of the lines from the film, because I thought that they weren't in the film, and then I found them on the IMDb quotes page, and I was like, wow, they actually said that.
Yeah, well,
So
I mean,
we'll discover that later on.
Paul Verhoeven's the director, who I love. He just does those crazy, over-the-top, exploitative films like Starship Troopers and RoboCop and Showgirls.
I'll have to watch more of his films. I'm horribly, undereducated in terms of...
No, he's fantastic.
Film.
So, I mentioned the 166 works. Sometimes when you're reading through an author's bibliography, you're really like, I have to read a bit more about this book. I'm so interested that I go into the blurb of one of the other books he's read.
Oh, yeah?
Or written. I've done this with a couple here because I was just a little bit amazed by some of these things that he'd written.
Oh, tell me more.
Now, have you seen the film Gentlemen Broncos?
No.
Okay, Gentlemen Broncos is by the guy that did Napoleon Dynamite, and it's about a teenager in, I think, like the 80s who, or certainly in a town which looks like it's in the 80s, who goes to a writing workshop, a sci-fi writing workshop.
Okay.
And the author there is played by Jermaine from Flight of the Conchords.
Oh, awesome.
And he's this guy, really weird guy, that writes these books about these topless harpies that shoot lasers out of their nipples, and everything's really, like, sexual and weird. Having read more about Piers Anthony, I think this is the guy. because Pierce Anthony writes books about centaurs and harpies and,
Oh, wow.
and lots of crazy sex stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it was definitely an influence, and I only put the two and two together. So started off just writing titles: Bamboo Bloodbath, Centaur Isle. He's got a very popular series called the Xanth series. Then there's one of them, and this is a fantasy novel with a fantasy cover, is called The Colour of Her Panties.
Okay.
And
That doesn't have to be a fantasy novel.
well, it's a different kind of fantasy perhaps, but this is the description. Mila Merwoman, one of the protagonists of The Colour of Her Panties, was introduced in Heaven Sent, attempting to trick Prince Dolph into marrying her. Still desperate for a husband, Mila goes to ask the good magician Humphrey to find her a suitable mate. On the way, she joins forces with a civilized ogre named Okra and a positive young woman named Ida who bears a striking resemblance to Princess Ivy. Meanwhile, adolescent Gwenny Goblin, Cheese Centaur, and Jenny Elf are trying to help Gwenny beat out her half-brother Gobble for chiefship of the Goblin Horde.
Wow, I'm just... there's so many interesting names there.
So yeah, things are starting to get crazy. Now look, if anybody out there has read the Xanth series and is a Piers Anthony expert, we'd love to hear from you on the Book Was Better discussion page, because I understand this is one of these things where if you know a lot about this, hearing me for the first time go, oh, look at this funny thing, you're like, fuck, I know all about this, and that's just tip of the iceberg. So tell us about it. But also wrote a book called Pornucopia. Now, do you want to read the blurb for this one?
Prior Gross, the hero and... my voice is breaking. The hero and sex object of this wild adventure thinks his fantasies have all come true when a beautiful young woman seduces him on a public beach. She turns out to be a succubus, beginning his initiation into a realm populated by demons that are not merely horned, but horny. He encounters a perverse cast of characters that includes a satyr, a vampire, and a pair of luscious sisters, one of whom tricks him out of his manhood. So Prior Gross sets out on a perverse odyssey, taking him to a distant planet where he discovers the key to the return of his property and, ultimately, the origin of the universe itself.
Sounds pretty great, right?
Yeah, it sounds epic.
And it has a sequel,
Pornucopia.
which was written about 10 years later. And
yeah?
the sequel to Pornucopia, you would think it would have a pretty sexy title.
Yeah.
It's called The Magic Fart.
That's so bizarre.
The long-awaited sequel to Pornucopia, picking up where Pornucopia left off, our hero Prior Gross receives word that his ideal woman, which he never knew existed, is in trouble. Off he goes to the land of Fartingale, where farts are magic. A rollicking good time.
Is this the actual blurb?
Yeah, that sounds like our April Fool's episode, like I'm making that up. But no, Google the magic fart if you dare.
Wow.
Piers Anthony.
Is that how you get the girl? With magic farts?
I don't know. I don't know what their magic powers are. I don't know what they do. But I kind of want to read his books now. Some of the covers as well are just insane, which is another thing about Gentleman Broncos. It's got a very iconic title sequence, which is all these really crazy fantasy book covers.
Oh.
And I feel like these would be very much at home there. So this is Pierce Anthony. He's a little bit unhinged and he puts his own spin on Total Recall, which is already a crazy fucking film.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. I didn't think it could get much crazier.
So strap in, everybody, because this one is pretty intense. So it begins with Chapter 1, Mars. Let's take it away.
2 moons hung in the dark red sky. One was full, the other crescent. One seemed to be 4 times the diameter of the other, and neither was exactly round. In fact, both might have been better described as egg-like, a chicken egg and a robin egg, perhaps even potato-like, large and small.
The big one was Phobos, named after the personification of fear, the type that possessed armies and caused their defeat. The small one was Deimos, the personification of terror. This was appropriate, for these were the companions of the ancient Roman god of war and agriculture, Mars.
The landscape of Mars was ugly. As far as the horizon, which was closer than it would have been on Earth, there were barren rock formations, overhanging ledges, and dust. There might have been a war here, fracturing the terrain, but there was obviously no agriculture. This was no man's land in the truest sense.
Douglas Quaid stood on the jaggedly sloping surface. He wore a lightweight spacesuit with breathing apparatus, for the atmospheric pressure here was only 150th that of Earth at ground level, and the temperature was about 100 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. There would have been Arctic snow if the scanned air had had enough water vapor to form it. Any failure of his suit, any little tear on the edge of one of the rocks would finish him just about as quickly as it would in deep space. About the only thing Mars had going for it that the vacuum of space didn't was gravity. Slightly better than a third of Earth's. At least it provided some notion of what was up and what was down and made it possible to walk.
Quaid hardly needed low gravity to help him walk. He was a massive man, so muscular that even the spacesuit could not hide his physique. He seemed to exude raw power. His chiseled features within the helmet were set, reflecting in his indomitable will. It was obvious that he was here by no accident. He had a mission, and not even the hell that was this planet would balk him for long.
Get your ass to Mars! Love him. This book, I'm going to say right from the beginning, is just absolutely dripping with testosterone.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly... I hope you didn't handle it for too long, or you might have hair popping up in all sorts of places. It's a very, very manly book.
It does it. It's definitely a lot. It's definitely different to the movie. That's all I'm going to say.
It's a manly book made for manly men. And I do expect the author of Pornucopia, though, to know a little bit about the ladies.
Someone was approaching. A woman. Quaid turned as if expecting her, unsurprised, and gazed at her with appreciation. She was worth it. She was as well formed for her sex as he was for his, voluptuous within her spacesuit. Behind her visor, her hair showed brown, and her eyes were great and dark. She gazed back at him, and her posture suggested her interest. If she was not in love with him, she was getting there.
Yeah, so despite being on Mars and adventuring on Mars, Quaid seems completely preoccupied with banging this woman. There is a mention that the suits would have made it impossible, though, unfortunately. And he's also annoyed that only her helmet is translucent.
Yeah, I love that bit.
No sweet titty windows there or anything like that. They'd probably just steam up anyway, wouldn't they? And their Mars adventure continues, but still, like Piers Anthony, is all about pussy pedestaling. She looked like an angel on a painted ceiling. The full moon Phobos floated above her head, completing the halo. She put her hand to her helmet, then flung it out, blowing him a kiss. Quaid felt a surge of emotion. God, she was beautiful. It's funny as well, I don't know if you remember the actress. I can't remember her name because I can't remember what else she was in, but she was no Sharon Stone, who was his wife in the film, and was Sharon Stone's prime. That was like her time when she was it. So I just never got it. I was like, why do you want this?
Yeah, I was like, who's this permed brunette?
Yeah. Very, very sort of average looking. And you said this was different. There's no screaming and eye-popping, which is the most iconic thing about the beginning of the film. Instead, in this version, he descends into an abyss filled with strange Martian-made structures. And then his cable starts to unfurl too fast, and he falls, and then he wakes up, and it was all a dream. Quaid is just a lowly construction worker on Earth, and about to enter a completely different crevice.
Oh. A beautiful creature was leaning over him. She wore a filmy nightgown that was falling open with a readiness that had to be intentional to reveal portions of her splendid anatomy. She was not the girl of the dream. She was a stunning blonde Amazon, his wife, Laurie. How could he have forgotten?
There's something Tommy Wiseau about. How could I have forgotten?
Oh, hi, Laurie.
How could I forget you, Laurie? You thought of everything.
Oh, hi, Laurie.
You've got nice pecs. Yeah, Sharon Stone. I'm going to make a confession here. I remember reading these scenes with Sharon Stone when I was like 12.
Oh, yeah?
And I was pretty moved by them.
By Piers Anthony's writing?
Yeah.
It is like, quite evocative.
This is all like a little bit sexy. You know, when you're at that certain age where you just think that everything in a book is like going to be... I must have read it first because I remember thinking... I know my memory of this was it described them having sex, which it doesn't really. It's all just a sort of prelude. But
that's like your 12-year-old brain filling in the gaps.
And I would think if anyone had sex in a book, that not only would they have sex in the film, but they would have to have actual sex, like the actors. I could think, like, there's no way they would be able to do it without, you know. Like, where would it go while she was sitting?
I was thinking about that while I was watching 50 Shades of Grey the other day.
Yeah, well,
Some of the scenes are, like, really, like, naked. I watched this version... Oh, well, it was a version that came from somewhere, I'm not sure. But some of the scenes were from a cam.
Yeah.
So the actual explicit scenes were in low quality, whereas the rest of it was in high quality because it was from China, I think. And they censored all those really explicit scenes out, so it was kind of hilarious.
Well, we did an expose on yesterday's FP cast, which you should listen to if anyone wants to hear more about this. But she's wearing what Jacinta dubbed a clunge cover in those scenes, and they have CGI'd her pubes.
Oh, wow.
On there. So when he's down there with his face between her legs, he's not actually in there.
He's in a clunge.
He's not in a clunge. He's not taking a clunge plunge. He's on the cover. He's just bumping up against this cover, which I don't know what that's made out of. Something robust, I imagine. And yeah, so that's how they do it these days.
Wow.
Computer-generated pubes. They could put anything on there. They could put Jar Jar Binks' face or something.
I was just thinking, like...
Oh, Mr. Horny.
These days, with, like, the sci-fi show Face Off.
Yeah.
Like, couldn't they make, like, a latex, like, prosthetic...
Yeah, like he could put his whole head in there. Yeah.
No, but, like, couldn't they, like, like, put the individual hairs in and, like, latex it on?
Yeah, maybe.
Or was it just easier for
Sounds
the
like
CGI,
a good challenge. Maybe just easier to just, whack a bit of fur on there. They probably got the...
Fun fur.
Yeah, probably went up to Pixar and said, can we get some of that Scully fur and can you just change it from blue to brown? Easy, put in a patch. I don't know. Bit of a mystery. I'd like to see a comedic scene where she gets stuck on his head and he's walking around bumping into things, tripping over the piano, all that sort of stuff. I think that'd be hilarious. So yes, I felt a little bit funny. Even when I read the Roger Rabbit book, I read that before I saw the film. This is like 1989. And
I think that's around the same time as this film.
Yeah, and it describes Jessica and the guy playing patty cake and getting photos taken. And I'm thinking, oh, they're having sex. They're having sex. So it's going to be this guy pretending to have sex with like a cartoon character. Imagine how disappointed I was the next day when they really were playing patty cake. Not everything is a metaphor. But yeah, what I remember about Total Recall, this was the first film. I saw it by myself in the cinema, and it would have been a 15 plus film, and I was in no way 15, and they let me in to go and watch this.
That's nice.
And when you see this film, like again, it's so grotesque and violent. And,
yeah, actually, I couldn't watch some of the violence. I had to look away.
Yeah,
and like I can take a lot of violence.
And really immoral.
Yeah, like it was just excessive to like what was needed.
Like, there's so many civilians and innocent people just getting horribly murdered by our hero most of the time without even thinking twice about it.
There's no reason for it, other than they've attacked him. But
so, fucked up thing for a kid to see, really. But anyway, we were in the sexy stuff. So, he did not answer, distracted by the clear sight of her full breasts within the hanging nightgown. He had, of course, seen them many times before, but somehow he never got tired of looking. Talk of impressive architecture. Mars again, she inquired solicitously. Her breast moved as her arm did, and she completed cleaning his face.
Cleaning his face?
A lot of booby talk here. He's fascinating. What I like about this is Schwarzenegger's character is really got this total animal instinct thing. He's pretty much Conan the Barbarian, but living in the future. He's just like, I wish I could see all the boobies. And here's more. Look at this.
She brought her She brought her head down, kissing the crotch of his neck and shoulder in a way that might have been comforting, but was becoming erotic.
Does the neck have a crotch? I'm not an anatomy expert.
Well, I googled it.
Yeah.
And I think the crotch is in the pelvis. And
it's down there. Yeah.
There's a crotch of the neck.
God.
But I do like he's trying to evoke.
I'm glad
sexuality.
They figured that out before they did the CGI on 50 Shades of Grey.
Well, yeah, he could have just gone to town on a neck.
In retrospect, though, I thought it was sexy when I was 12. This is just absolutely wonderfully ridiculous. You are so full of bull, she breathed.
He laughed. Well, do you know what a bull does with a cow?
cow!" she exclaimed with mock indignation. "You ever seen a cow do this?" She sat up bestriding him, riding his groin, and hauled off her nightgown. She had the world's finest body and knew it. Or this, she bounced, her breasts following their own courses, while her thighs did special things to his midsection. Or this, she abruptly dropped her upper torso onto him and kissed him savagely. Her tresses slid down around his face and neck, silken smooth, tickling him delightfully.
It's pretty X-rated for a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
That's probably why you thought they were having sex.
Quiet read. One-handed read. Why is Sharon Stone into this lowly construction worker anyway? That's what I want to know.
But what was his appeal for her? Oh, he had muscles, and she did like that. But she could surely have found and landed a man who had muscles and money or power. Why has she settled for half a loaf? And why was he, the luckiest of men, dreaming of a fantasy woman instead? That seemed perverse at best and crazy at worst.
I'm willing to claim it's both.
What's half a loaf?
I love that description.
I love how he just calls, like, you know, he's just like, you know, if you just want to eat a little bit of bread, but not so much so that it goes moldy in a few days, because you don't eat that much bread. I don't know.
My teachers described me as only being half a loaf. And then
I like that also they suggest that women like money or power.
oh yeah,
Like, I guess that's true.
they're the three things: muscles, money, power, that women like, right?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah,
And half a loaf.
half a loaf. Half a baguette. So, look, let's recap. He was in space with a woman in a spacesuit, and he was wishing her spacesuit was see-through. Then he woke up and banged his wife, who he could see her boobs through her clothes. Now at the subway security station, Quaid's mind wanders into familiar territory once again.
Having nothing better to do, he watched the line ahead of him as it turned to pass the panels. Each person lost clothing and flesh to become a walking skeleton, then returned to full human form beyond the panel. He saw an attractive young woman approach and watched closely as she paraded on the panel, but it was no good. All that showed was her bones, not her bare body. He always hoped that someday something would go wrong and the x-rays would be diminished just enough to abolish the clothing, leaving the naked flesh.
He is insatiable.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking that when I was watching
He
this
doesn't
scene.
even care. Well, Piers Anthony was. He doesn't even seem to care who it is. He's just like, I want to see a lot of boobies today.
Any female.
Oh, look at that old lady. Look at her grey. Look at her curly grey.
He is quite picky about women, though, as we'll see
Well, that
later
is
on.
true. He's a man of great taste. He's not a shallow man, though. But wait, what? Look at this. His turn came. He passed through, feeling like a stripper on stage. As he passed beyond the panel, he glanced back at the line behind him and saw a young woman staring at him, the tip of her tongue playing across her lips, her eyes fixed. She had been trying to see his naked flesh. That pleased him in a minor way. He knew he had good bones too.
I don't even know.
And it's not in the film. It's not in
I
the
didn't even-
script. Can you imagine a woman seeing that big fucking half a loaf that is Arnold Schwarzenegger and like licking her lips there in the subway station at him?
I could in the context of this book.
Oh, she would have to have something wrong with her head. And then on the subway, he sees a commercial that appeals to him.
A happy fellow lay on a round bed next to a sex pot. He had evidently just made love to her, or was about to. They were under a glass dome at the bottom of the ocean. Colourful fish swam around outside. Quaid knew that most of the pretty fish were up near the surface, not 3 miles down, and they had better things to do than pose for the eyes of tourists who paid them no attention anyway. Not when there were sex pots to be stroked. But, hell, it was their commercial. It was foolish even to expect realism in a commercial.
Not when there were sex pots to be stroked. So, Piers Anthony definitely has something on his mind. I mean, when you think that this was based on a story by Philip K. Dick, he had Dick in his name and he didn't transfix on it as much as Piers Anthony. It's crazy. And Recall is the name of this company, and they sell fake memories. So he basically decides he's going to go and get a Mars super spy adventure package implanted in his brain. But this is his real dilemma, though.
He would have flattened any man who called him chicken. Fortunately, none had, since he had got his adult growth. But now he was accusing himself.
Oh, see, look, I understand this. I mean, Marty McFly didn't want to be called chicken. It was the one thing that would get him really riled up.
Oh.
I think, American men, Austrian men, big, strong, powerful men, they don't want to be called chicken by anybody. And now he's calling himself chicken. So you can imagine he's just like in this vicious cycle of punching himself in the head.
She's pretty tasty, though.
Making chicken. Well, that is true. Finger looking good.
Yeah. Oh, man, I want KFC now.
Okay, let's just not do this.
We're going to finish the podcast. Let's pause, get a bucket, and then come back.
Alright, so welcome back to the podcast. Better. Do you ever have all-you-can-eat KFC? Do you remember when they used to do that?
That was a thing?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
when
I never had that.
It was around when I was in uni, so like 90...
When I was like a small child.
98? Yeah.
Before I was born, just kidding.
And they would do it. They would do like a buffet.
A buffet?
Yeah, you would go into the restaurant and there would be a buffet. They didn't
KFC had restaurants?
Yeah, well, we'll have it like a seating area, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because they used to do it at Karawara near the uni.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, you could just eat. They didn't have chips or anything, but they had like salads and fried chicken.
That's pretty good.
And you'd pay, I don't know what you'd pay, like probably $13-14, and you would just...
What?
Eat
delicious.
however like much chicken you want, and you'd always have competitions with your friends to see how many pieces of chicken you could eat. And I was like skinny back then as well, so it was awesome. You could just like eat 13 pieces of chicken.
I think I'd do it even if I wasn't skinny.
Yeah.
That's delicious. You know what I miss? Pizza Hut.
Or you can eat as well.
Yeah, we used to, get all the different pizzas and then just start mixing random stuff together. The old sizzler.
Yeah.
Mix the cucumber with the yogurt.
That's pretty great. Those are the days.
Buffets, man.
We still have Sizzler.
Yeah, but...
For what it is.
KFC.
Back to boobs. And the receptionist makes up for those stupid security panels in the subway because...
For a moment, she looked bare-bosomed. Her breasts sprayed blue, but then the light shifted and he realised that it was the effect of one of those now you see it, now you don't, variable translucency blouses. Seen from one angle in one light, she was fully covered. Seen from another angle in the other light, she was nude.
See, Piers Anthony can't decide on the rules of this world, right? Because he's talking about, even a secretary in an office is wearing clothes that go transparent so that you can see her tits. If that is the world that he lives in, why does he stand at the security panels looking mournfully at skeletons, wishing that he could see their titties?
Must be heaps in it, semi-translucent bloused people around.
This is why I think I read the book before I saw the film, because I think I was ready to see the secretary's boobs. I was like, oh, here we go. And then I was like, what? She's just wearing probably an 80s blouse or something. Dreadful. And speaking of clothing, Piers is very intent on adding all sorts of weird details throughout this thing. McLean seemed to be a jovial hustler. McLean is the head of Recall. He was in his mid-50s and he wore the latest Martian frog pelt grey suit. The frogs weren't native, of course. There was no surviving native life on Mars. But imported terrestrial frogs raised in special Martian farms had developed unusual characteristics in the reduced gravity and increased radiation, and now there was quite a market for their hides.
Wouldn't the suits be radioactive?
I would say so, or have mutant abilities.
Why would you add that detail? Anyway.
It's a valiant attempt, but I do think sometimes Pierre's a grey suit is just a grey suit. You don't have to add in the Martian frogs.
I did Google frog pelt.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to visualise what a frog pelt suit would look like. Nothing came up.
I think it'd be like green felt, like Kermit. Yeah. And as Quaid is strapped into the chair, he meets Dr. Lull. She's a middle-aged woman, and she's basically the first female who he's not attracted to. And I didn't expect this. He has a very surprising revelation as he sits in the chair and looks at this unattractive woman.
Quaid realised that even unattractive middle-aged women had dreams.
What?
Yeah, like, what the hell is with that line? She was indulging in hers by playing a muted verbal footsie with him, perhaps picturing herself in bed with him, just the way he pictured himself in bed with any young and sexy woman he had encountered.
Every young and sexy woman he encountered.
For the first time, he realised that this sort of fancy might be an imposition on the other party, even when unvoiced. At times, he had bantered with a young woman, only to have her turn away as if affronted, when he hadn't meant anything by it. Now, picturing himself as the object of Dr. Lull's lust, himself strapped down in this chair, while she slowly stripped off his clothes and handled him in whatever way might titillate her, he understood the woman's side of it. He didn't care to be victimised by her imagination.
So he understood that perhaps he'd been objectifying women and perhaps there was more to this whole thing and that it was an imposition. And I guess he shook it off about a minute later and decided...
Yeah, there's no more of this. There's no more of this for the rest of the book.
That was it. I was surprised it was there, though.
I looked up a picture of that lady just to remember what she looks like. And compared to the girl who plays Melina, the brunette,
the
she's,
dream woman.
On par.
Yeah. Well, he has to choose the woman that he wants for his adventure.
Ooh, choose your own woman.
Adventure. He gazed drowsily at a vague female outline on a computer screen he hadn't noticed before. How do you prefer your women, she asked. Blonde, brunette, redhead, Negro, Oriental.
Wow.
Yikes!
I don't even know those terms are and also you can be of a different ethnicity. You can be African American and be blonde.
Yeah, and this is our enlightened future, I guess.
Yeah, I wonder whether, was the political correctness thing, really different in the 1990s?
I guess it was. It's amazing how much things have changed in just a relatively short time, isn't it? This book is full of offensive things, which we will
Well, I was thinking
cover.
back to the last book that I did with, that toy thing.
Oh, Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, and at the end they were kicking.
Oh yeah, that was way worse.
You faggot, and I was like, wow, you could never do that now.
Yeah, and surprisingly here, Piers Anthony doesn't dwell on the picking the breast size. In the film, they get to enlarge the boobs on the thing.
Yeah, he gets to pick was he double D? I think he picked. Yeah.
But look, something goes wrong and Quaid goes berserk. Stop this operation now! Quaid yelled. How could the guy be talking so clearly? A reaction-induced berserker might scream and froth at the mouth, but his words would be mostly blasphemy and gibberish. Quaid sounded alarmingly coherent. Now this is a record. This has to be the only time Schwarzenegger has ever been accused of being alarmingly coherent. And I noticed as well, Verhoeven films are just so misogynistic. The head of Recall says to his female doctor, use your fucking head, you dumb bitch.
Wow.
That's not cool, in the workplace or otherwise. Not cool at all. So Recall assumes that Quaid is actually a real secret agent who has been to Mars in the past, so they drug him and dump him in a Johnny cab. And then his friend Harry and some thugs threaten him at gunpoint, and then not a moment too soon, because we've had a lot of sexy stuff, but the violence kicks in.
Quaid's arm smashed across Harry's neck, crushing his windpipe. Harry hardly had time to collapse, trying to gag, trying to breathe, before Quaid whirled and caught the nearest goon with a sledgehammer fist to the heart. The man was still standing, though dead on his feet, as Quaid leaped at the next. He caught the man's head between his hands and twisted so savagely that there was an audible snap, and the face was looking out from the wrong side of the body, the eyes wide open, startled. The last goon had had 3 seconds to react. He was lurching forward, his gun coming up. Quaid's knee rose to meet his head, smashing the man's nose straight back into the brain.
Yeah, it's really brutal. And
I don't think I could watch this scene. I was like, ugh.
And it's violence with zero consequence. The hero, he is our hero, just shakes it off immediately and goes off and murders more people. He basically murders a whole lot of people in this thing. And, he doesn't feel any remorse. He just quips. And it's interesting when you think how this reflects our appetites at the time, like what we wanted to watch and what was successful.
Violence.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to kill them in that way. Like, it was so over the top violent and, like, you know, overly, you know, showy. Like, you know, the man's head going all the way around the other side.
Yeah. And there are so many movies like this.
And yeah.
So yeah, he basically now gets to murder everyone he meets, and everybody basically tries to murder him. His wife attacks him, Laurie attacks him, and reveals that their entire relationship was an implanted memory with this little detail.
He remembered the way she had sauntered across the street that first day. He remembered their wedding, the startling contrast between his father's humble finery and her father's stylish Martian frog pelt tux. More frog pelt tuxes.
Maybe there was a sale or something.
It was cool at that time to wear frogs.
And Quaid...
What did the frogs ever do? What did the frogs do to Piers? Maybe he had like a traumatic experience with a frog when he was little.
It seems a lot of hassle to go to take a whole bunch of frogs all the way to Mars and raise them in this really hostile, radioactive, dangerous environment purely in order to make tuxedos.
And you'd need heaps of frogs.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they don't have much skin.
No, I know. It's crazy. They sound expensive, actually.
Piers.
And I can't even imagine what the texture's like. Probably like wearing an avocado. So... Quaid has all the smooth moves.
He lowered the gun and touched her breast. She smiled encouragingly, inhaling. Suddenly, he raised the gun and clubbed her on the head, knocking her out.
So that combined both the loves here, breasts and violence.
Yeah.
We got them both in the one little sequence. He really is just a big caveman, isn't he?
He's half a loaf.
So Quaid's on the run, and then this is the most hideous scene in the film. Everybody is totally fucking murdered at the subway station.
Quaid fainted to the side. An unlucky commuter caught a door-piercing bullet in the head. He fell backward into Quaid. His face was gone. There was screaming as the others realised what was happening. All the commuters crouched on the stairs trying to get out of the line of fire.
And here's another smooth move. He was already in motion mounting the escalator using the faceless body as a shield. And that's the last time I watched this film. That was the most disturbing thing. He's got this dead innocent body. Like just this person that was commuting.
Yeah.
And he's holding it as a shield. It's getting riddled with bullets. He doesn't give a shit. He throws it aside.
Well, it is dead.
Keeps running. It's crazy. Quaid escapes to a slum. And he gets a tip that he's bugged. They're tracking him. So he wraps a towel around his head.
Oh, this was hilarious. I love that.
He wears this towel for quite a while, so it's quite funny. And he picks up a satchel of goods. And it contains Mars bars. Ooh, see what you did there? A mechanical
really
disguise. Oh, you only just got that one? Yeah, Mars bars. Martian money, a surgical instrument, and a video disc of himself talking to himself, claiming to be a man called Hauser. But really, it's this surgical instrument we're most interested in. This bit goes on for a long time, but this is a great paragraph.
Gingerly, he stuck the instrument up his nose and started to push. He grimaced with the pain. He could handle regular pain, as of clobbering his fist into a wall, but there was something particularly discomforting about an intrusion deep in the nose. It wasn't just the snot, it got perilously close to the brain up in there. He pictured one of those rotary drain cleaners worming into the pipe, set to chew up any obstruction. But the obstruction here wasn't a jammed turd, it was his nasal tissue.
Very,
wow.
Very beautiful writing, isn't it? It paints some lovely pictures.
Oh, you...
And Hauser gives his final advice. He walked into a close-up on the screen. Now this is the plan. Get your ass to Mars. I wish that was the tagline. I'd love to have seen that just written on all the posters.
Oh, that would have been...
It's my favorite.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, well, he does get his ass to Mars. So we cross to the Mars ship, but wait, why did they let this person on?
A hugely fat lady waddled from the back of the ship toward the front. She carried several packages. As the captain hung up, she squeezed past him. Her vanity was such that she even wore high heels, though they jacked her to above the height of most men, and did absolutely nothing for her sausage-like legs.
Sausage-like legs. My stomach turns. I can't believe they let fat people on Mars.
Oh my, I can't believe fat people would dare to wear high heels.
Disgusts me. This whole scene isn't in the film. There's a sequence here where the fat woman gets onto the ship and finds her cabin. And it's all missing from the film, which instead goes straight to the spaceport scene. And in the film, the iconic line is 2 weeks, 2 weeks. That's when the mask short circuits. Because if you haven't seen the film, this is Schwarzenegger wearing a big fat woman electronic mask. Bothered about something he couldn't quite nail, Richter paused and looked back at the patiently waiting people. He saw the baby playing with the fat lady's hair. The fat lady had rearranged her outfit, but it still didn't do a thing for her. Then the baby pat-a-cake the woman's face. Doesn't mean what I thought it did when I read Roger Rabbit. With some force, not knowing its own strength. "Where's my cabin?" the fat lady asked incongruously. Richter focused on her, vaguely disturbed. Was that the only thing she knew how to say? The fat lady opened her mouth, seemingly horrified. The baby laughed. By the way, I realise at this point I've totally neglected to mention Richter. That's Michael Ironside, who's the bad guy. But I just really give a shit about Doug Quaid. Doug Quaid's our man. I don't really care about Richter here.
I don't think they'd actually introduced him properly.
No, he's sort of
point.
He's in the background and he's got the yeah boss, we'll go get him kind of scenes. But Schwarzenegger is just doing so many crazy, insane things that that's the thing I want to talk about.
Did they actually use him in those scenes where he's a woman, or did they use a female actor?
No, they use an actress, and then
I thought so.
There's a computer effect where the face splits open and he's underneath.
Ah, yeah, I thought so.
But Mars is in turmoil with fighting and people are paying too much for air, but Quaid is determined once he arrives to go to the last resort bar in Venusville in hopes of finding his dream lady, who we find out is called Melina. But Mars, of course, has mutants, and here's one of the more memorable ones.
Mary, a sexy, well-built prostitute, appeared from nowhere and approached Quaid. "Not free," she purred. "Available." He looked at her. He noticed that she had 3 full breasts, prominently displayed in a special bikini top. For any man who got his main kicks in that department, here was extra measure.
Yeah, 50% extra. I quite like that, actually. I think that's interesting. But when Quaid turns her down, Piers Anthony adds his own special twist. "Earth slime," she said. It was the type of response he had expected. Then she farted and oozed over to another potential customer. That Quaid hadn't expected. You and me both, sir.
Yeah.
What?
Now that you tell me that he wrote a book called The Magic Fart, this is a lot less surprising, but still it's a little out of context.
It's a weird thing to just add to a character, but I kind of feel like...
It wasn't in the movie, was it?
No.
I didn't
and there's
think so.
a lot of novelizationists that could maybe benefit from this tactic.
More farts?
Yeah, like just a minor character who says something, says a line, and then farts and leaves. I think that would be really great.
The old Piers Anthony method.
Yeah. I do like this dialogue from the film. This is actually my favourite exchange in the entire film, and this is as he meets Melina. Do you want to be him or Melina?
I'll be him.
"Well, if it isn't the human hard-on," Melina said. She stepped into him and gave him a wet and sloppy kiss. Then she ground against him, feeling his muscles onto the shirt. "Still bulging, I see." She looked down. "Ooh, what you been feeding it?"
He realised that this was a public place, while anything between them was private. They couldn't say anything here, if there was anything to say, so he played along. "Blondes." Literally true. Laurie was a blonde.
"I think it's still hungry." She pulled him toward the stairs.
Oh, goodness.
"What you been feeding it?" "Blondes." These movies they are like just literally a big caveman club to the head, aren't they? It's just all fucking base instinct.
Objectification.
Yeah, it's really gross, but entertaining. Oh, and seeing as how we've already had the Negroes and Orientals, we also have a midget. who's referred to as a midget, and her name is Thumbelina.
I remember her from the film because her face looks exactly like Ashley
Olsen
and
twin,
Mary-Kate Olsen. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
had to look it up because I was like, I know they were young around that time. Maybe they were just, a midget. But then it's actually a lady who still looks like that now.
Yeah. It wasn't a toddler, Ashley Olsen, playing a prostitute in the Venusville bar.
I just had to check. She's a stunt woman, so yeah.
But
Props.
look, Melina kicks him out. Cohagen, who's the leader of the Mars colony, declares martial law due to the Mars Liberation Front and its mysterious leader, Kuato. And Quaid is visited by the doctor from Recall, who tries to convince him that he's still in his chair and this is all part of an implant gone wrong. And he even trots out wife Laurie, which I think's wonderful because it gives us a great opportunity to talk about her tits again.
Quaid did his best to absorb this extra shock. Laurie was beautiful in exactly the kind of wanton and demure outfit he liked, showing more breast than she seemed to be conscious of, her face evincing a trace of colour where he had hit her with a gun by the eye. He was abruptly sorry about that. He had never hit her before.
What a nice man. But we all know how this pans out, of course. He then saw a single drop of sweat trickle down Edgemar's brow. His Hauser reflex took over abruptly. He swung his gun at Edgemar and fired. The plastic explosive in the plastic gun sent the plastic bullet straight through the man's head. Blood splattered in a dense circle on the wall. Another cold-blooded murder from our hero. Hooray!
Another graphic murder.
And then all hell breaks loose.
Quaid came blurrily awake. He was being dragged to a service elevator. 2 guests and a bellboy with a luggage cart stood to the side, not interfering. He must have been out only a few seconds, just long enough for his balls to settle down to a bearable level of agony.
That's great out of context, isn't it?
Is there mention of his balls getting kicked?
Yeah, I think
okay.
Laurie kicks him in the balls. I just love that quote. But Sabrina, I'm sorry. I've got a really short attention span for this stuff. I am a male, after all. A male of the... I grew up in the 80s. I want to talk about boobs again.
Then a woman ran out of the elevator. She had legs as good as Laurie's and a fuller bosom and long dark hair. Then, as his gaze made it to the face, he was amazed. It was Melina!
Took him... I wonder how long that took him. He just slowly went...
scanning
he's
up.
like, legs, boobies... Oh, it's you, Melina. I did not recognize you.
That sounds a lot like Tony Wiseau.
They kind of have merged in my head now.
Oh, hi, boobies.
There's no sexier word than bosom, though, is there?
No, it's pretty sensual.
Bosom. It's very matronly.
Is it?
I feel so. Bosom.
Oh, that's a bad thing, isn't it?
Well, not a bad thing. I just don't think it's your sexy go-to word.
Oh.
Just a thought. Here's another great line.
Consider this a divorce, he said gruffly. Laurie swung her arm back for throwing. Quaid fired. The bullet struck her in the forehead. The knife dropped from her hand. Then Laurie dropped.
No messy paperwork there. No splitting up their stuff. Just shoots his wife in the face.
Simple.
And the audience probably claps because this was, 1990? So, action, some Mars politics, and then it's underground to meet the mysterious Kuato.
Quaid stopped his jaw from dropping only with an effort. A small second head was growing from the man's chest. Wrinkled and hairy, the head was a cross between a fetus and an old man.
Benjamin Button.
Its eyes were closed in sleep. Evidently, it was only partially formed, like Benny's claw hand. Mutations were seldom beneficial, most of them were negative, being not only grotesque but useless, yet some were otherwise.
Yeah, he's like a little psychic. He's kind of like a Yoda growing out of a guy's chest. It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's all spoilt, this scene, because we suddenly realise that Quaid is a dirty homophobe, thanks to a little detail that Anthony adds here. Quaid reluctantly held George's hands. He was trying not to be finicky, but the notion of being close to the mutant repelled him. So did the notion of holding hands with a man.
I don't even know what to say.
I think he's very insecure.
Oh, it could be.
He's definitely overcompensating with all the boobs stuff.
Piers. Could be. maybe it's just the political correctness, the lack of political correctness of the time.
It's
I don't
pretty
know.
frightening, though, isn't it? Because you grow up with a lot of these films and you just think, oh, yeah, that's like a fun film. You don't think twice about it. And then you sort of watch and you go, wow, like, I mean, I was, growing up in a time when things like that were just really naturalized, and that's pretty gross.
But it's good that, people can still change, like, even having grown up with all that stuff.
But then I guess there are people that haven't as well. But, I mean, Jingle All the Way was the biggest one. That really surprised me because that's just so crazily offensive what happens in that thing. And I've seen that film before and I've never noticed it. And it's like...
It's very sort of like
It's insidious.
Subliminal, I
don't like that. So, Quaid sends Quaid into basically a whole chapter-long vision involving exploring the ancient alien artifacts. Now, I've seen in reviews people are kind of interested in this because it provides all the backstory to what happened on Mars that isn't in the film. Got to admit, though, this was the chapter that bored the absolute shit out of me as a kid.
Is that because there's no boobs in it?
I think so. I just wanted to see Quaid, like, smashing faces.
Where are the sex scenes?
Yeah. So, there's all this crazy alien backstory bullshit with all these crazy names. Here's an example of it. Anticipating a question here, the mental narrator paused to flash a picture of a more distant type of species. It was like a fire-breathing jellyfish with lobster pincers. So it's like someone basically pasted in some Scientology into the middle of my Total Recall book.
Well, Piers Anthony is a sci-fi writer, as is Ron
Hubbard, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of like the whole imagery there, jellyfish and flames and lobster pincers.
It's all kind of tying together. So, basically, we find out there's an alien reactor that's going to give Mars an atmosphere, but then all hell breaks loose again as we race towards the climax. Quaid is killed, there's more action, and they are brought before Chief Bad Guy Cohagen, and Quaid displays his usual eloquence. You can be Quaid. Then Cohagen walked over to where Quaid sat and clapped him on the shoulder. Well, congratulations, Quaid, he said jovially. You're a hero.
Quaid's reply was to the point. Fuck you.
What a loaf.
Half a loaf.
What a half
Only
a loaf.
half a loaf.
He's so belligerent. These are our heroes. There was no...
He swears a lot in this film.
And there was no... and there were so many films like this.
Yeah,
and so many Schwarzenegger
like
films like this where they would just... That would be their snappy comeback. Now we have, your Star-Lords and your Iron Men who are witty and, like, intelligent.
Yeah.
There's always... But our heroes were just the most dumb, gross, violent, unfunny, just severe, brutal, horrible, horrible creatures. It's crazy when you think back.
Have you seen the compilation where they've got all of Arnie's "fuck you"?
Yeah,
and they've just put it one after the other. It's just so funny. It's like bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Who is your daddy and what does he do? And it turns out that Hauser was in on it all along and he wants the body back. Sorry to be an Indian giver, Hauser said, but what's fair is fair and I was here first. So adios, amigo, and thanks for not getting yourself killed. Indian giver!
Oh, God.
Is there any group they have yet offended in this book? Come on, Piers Anthony.
And that was actually in the film as well.
Mm-hmm.
I had to look it up. I was like, is that in the book? Just in the book, just Piers Anthony having a bit of fun. Nope, it was in the film.
Oh, here's another great Schwarzenegger line. This is Quaid strapped into the recall chair. He makes a compelling case for the people who need their air.
Don't be a shithead, Cohagen, Quaid shouted. Give the people air.
Yeah, no wonder he got into politics with that sort of... that sort of sway.
I'm sure they're missing his hard-hitting bluntness in California.
Don't be a shithead.
Bullshit.
Quaid is having all kinds of weird revelations here.
He thrashed in his chair, trying to break free. The whining of the equipment was excruciating, but that was nothing compared to the pain of struggle and loss. He seemed helpless, yet he could not just let it happen. Was this what a woman felt when she was being raped? For surely it was a kind of rape.
You are a weird guy, Piers Anthony.
I don't even know what to say about it.
He keeps having these, like, internal struggles, doesn't he? Where he's, like, this really intense, virile, sexual predator who then starts to, like, doubt himself and doubt what he's doing, but then just goes straight back to doing it again. It's really scary when you think about this character. But look, shake it off, Quaid. Don't get too philosophical. Time to murder more people. The doctor rushed over to restrain him. Quaid swung the armrest like a clumsy weapon and drove a long exposed bolt through the doctor's throat. The assistants converged. One grabbed Quaid's forearm. Quaid curled him into a one-armed hug and snapped his neck. Do you remember that? The bolt going into the guy's throat and blood just pissing everywhere? That's another one of those bits which is just so over-the-top brutal. And it's just a guy that works there.
Yeah.
It's not a villain. They've just told him, hey, we're going to, fix this guy's implant.
Yeah, he could at least, just twist everyone's necks, with a good old one-armed hug.
Yeah. What about a nice two-armed hug? I understand that this isn't your fault, and that's fine. Why don't you go home to your wife, and I'm going to just leave. All right, let's wrap this shit up. Quaid has to get to the reactor. Richter is trying to kill him. Great dialogue here as well. Quaid smiled grimly. Then maybe we have him by the balls.
Balls? She inquired, glancing sidelong at him.
Whatever. Let's see how this pecker likes our action.
Wow. So obsessed with
I know, for a homophobe.
genitals.
He says some pretty homoerotic things, like this.
Maybe I can get him in the ass this time, Quaid said. See how he likes his own medicine.
He's really confused. And I was totally disappointed that Richter's arms aren't severed during the elevator fight in the book.
Why?
Well, because that was cool in the film. Gets his arms chopped off by the elevator.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But in the book he just falls.
I think I've forgotten a lot of the scenes because I found them so gross and my brain has, removed them. It's you don't need this information. I'm going to store it elsewhere.
Hid your eyes.
Yeah.
And then they set off the reactor, but Quaid and Melina are sucked outside onto the surface for some eye-bulging action.
I love the eye bulging. It was
so
hilarious.
Creepy. It's hard to look at.
It's hard to watch.
That would be a prosthetic head, so somebody's probably got that in there, hanging above their fireplace or something. This eye-popping Schwarzenegger head that goes, nah, 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 nah. I thought this was really romantic, though.
Quaid's and Melina's mucous membrane started to bleed. They clung tightly to each other's hands, knowing that this was the end.
Adorable. And the atmosphere is created, everyone is saved, and this is the real ending. We got there.
Yay.
It did seem like a miracle.
Quaid and Melina looked down at their feet. The snow was melting as it landed, and the ground was wet and spongy. Water was trickling over the parched soil. There would be some erosion, but already the no-ui plants were landing. They would be rooting quickly, taking hold of the dirt, anchoring it, turning it into humus. Hummus? Humus?
Hummus, red capsicum.
Turning it into delicious garlic dip, garlic and chickpeas. Wet Mars would become green.
Melina nestled up to him. Well, Mr. Quaid, I hope you've enjoyed your trip to our lovely planet.
Enjoy is not the word, he replied somewhat gruffly. They had won the right to move on as people and as a species, but the horrible cost remained too fresh in his mind.
Come on, didn't you see the science kill the bad guys and save the planet? She smiled seductively at him. You even got the girl of your dreams.
She was teasing him, but her familiar words chilled him. I had a terrible thought, he said. What if this is really a dream?
Then kiss me quick, she said seriously, before you wake up.
Quaid cast the spectre away. He took Melina in his arms and kissed her robustly. He was through with dreaming. Reality was much better.
And then she farted and oozed away. And he woke up and his pillow was gone and he'd eaten it. Because he dreamt he'd eaten a big marshmallow.
What?
It's an old joke.
Oh, okay.
Older than you, probably. That was Total Recall! Yay! So, I got to ask you, as I always do, what was the book better?
Oh, it's hard, actually. The book is different. I think I like the movie better.
I like the movie. I think this is an entertaining book. Like I said, I had it as a kid. I really got a kick out of reading it again because it's just so messed up.
It's kind of
really
funny.
Crazy. Yeah, I do recommend you having a read if you're curious. But I love the film. Anything with Schwarzenegger in just makes me laugh. I just think he's hilarious. He's my favourite. So I do think the film is better. Now, I got a review here from Amazon, which were quite eloquent, actually. I didn't get to make fun of much, but this one certainly reinforces this theory that perhaps Gentleman Broncos was drawing on this. 1 out of 5 stars, or you could just read the original short story by Philip K. Dick. We can remember it for you wholesale, which is vastly superior to the dreadful film and possibly even more superior to this hack novelization, which at least, thank God, doesn't have any half-naked centaur chicks in it.
Oh,
Take that, Piers Anthony.
He's clearly familiar with Piers Anthony's work.
This guy's read The Magic Fart.
I found one on Goodreads. Should I censor this guy's name or just Michael?
Michael, yeah.
Michael gives it 3 stars, which is pretty good. He says, "This book holds a certain amount of nostalgia for me. This is the first book that I can remember reading for pure pleasure. Yes, I know. I started reading for fun pretty late. I think I was 14 at the time. Before this, I only read books that were required by school. This book, however, sparked an interest in reading for fun. Novel, right? Anyway, comparing it to other books I've read, it doesn't seem that great. But its importance in my life merits at least 3 stars."
Sounds like that was a one-handed read. I think it wasn't just the first book that he'd read. I think it probably marks another first time. I think that's romantic. That's lovely. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well, look, thanks for listening, everybody, to the old Total Recall. Please listen to the other podcasts, FP Cast, Fruitless Pursuits Cast, every Monday, film and movie news, reviews with Jacinta and I, and Thursdays is Scar Joe a Go-Go, and this week I'm watching The Spirit, which is a crazy unwatchable film, but I'm going to give it a go. And please rate and review on iTunes. Go to www.fruitlesspursuits for all the news, all the links to the podcast, links to our discussion page. And my God, if you've read some Piers Anthony, please tell us all about it. So, Sabrina, there we go.
Yay!
Any other thoughts or reflections on this whole enterprise before we get out of here?
No.
No, I thought as much. All right, you want to say...
No thoughts, nothing.
Nah, we're done. Drop the mic. We'll catch...
you on the flips.
Tomas Janji.